Hello everyone, welcome to a quick note. In today's episode, we're delving into the fascinating history of ancient Rome, exploring its rise, fall, and the enduring legacy that shaped the course of human civilization. The Romans had their heyday from about 753 BC to 476 AD. This stretch covered the birth of Rome, the era of the Roman Republic, and the grand days of the Roman Empire. Summing up all that history in a nutshell is no easy task, but here's a quick rundown of how things went down for the Romans. At the start, Rome was just a monarchy. Then it switched gears to become a republic, where the power was more evenly spread among the people. After that, it hit its peak as a massive and influential empire, but eventually it all went south. In the mix, you'll come across captivating tales of myths, legends, clashes, internal conflicts, and some seriously wild emperors. There were victories and losses, epic battles, and not-so-noble behavior. All in all, ancient Rome was a gripping chapter in the story of humanity. Ready to step back in time? Foundation myth of Rome. Just like any grand empire, Rome had its own creation myth, a tale that explained its origins. People have always been curious about their roots, much like the fascination with modern ancestry services like 23andMe. In Rome's case, their foundational myth was solidified in the 1st century AD during the empire's peak. At that time, Rome had expanded to control half of the known world, giving rise to the saying, "All roads lead to Rome." As Rome became a mighty society, it needed an official story about its beginnings, a narrative that answered questions about how a humble town transformed into a global powerhouse. What made Rome stand out from the rest? They needed a story that captured their journey from an ordinary place to a world-dominating force. The Romans crafted a captivating fairy tale to explain their origins, and it became widely accepted as the official version. According to legend, Rome was a divine gift from the gods themselves. The story goes that Romans are descendants of Venus, the goddess of love, and Mars, the god of war, a perfect pairing for a city marked by a history of both peace and war, beauty and chaos. While Romans embraced this as the true account of their nation's birth, the foundation myth lacks a solid historical basis. It's more of an operatic narrative featuring gods, twins, wolves, murder, and other dramatic elements. However, like any myth, there's a nugget of truth within. Rome's origin story, recounted by Virgil in 19 BC's Aeneid, connects to ancient Troy. The Latin epic poem intertwines legends of Aeneas and his family from the 8th century BC, but it's crucial to acknowledge the tale's mythical essence. Aeneas and Ascanius. The Aeneid recounts the legendary journey of Aeneas, a Trojan prince and son of Anchises and Venus, the goddess of love. Aeneas, seeking to establish a new Troy after the fall of the original to Greece, traveled with his family to Italy. After exploring various locations, he settled in the Alban Hills, just outside Rome. Aeneas and his son Ascanius engaged in a struggle for dominance to establish their territory. Ascanius eventually became the first king of the Alban Hills. Subsequent rulers, including Numitor, followed him. However, Numitor was overthrown by his ambitious and deceitful brother, Amulius. Numitor had a daughter named Rhea Silvia. In an attempt to prevent the birth of any potential rivals to the throne, Amulius compelled Rhea to become a Vestal Virgin. The Vestal Virgins served as priestesses of the goddess Vesta and were tasked with safeguarding her hearth. But Amulius's plans were thwarted. Rhea was beloved by Mars, the Roman god of war, Romulus and Remus. Despite Rhea Silvia being a virgin, she miraculously gave birth to twin sons, Romulus and Remus, around 771 BC. These twins would later go on to become the founders of Rome. In a tale woven with elements of both love and war, Romulus and Remus inherited Venus's bloodline through their father Aeneas and Mars's lineage through their mother Rhea. This unique mix of divine ancestry would play a significant role in the destiny of Rome. Fearful that the twins might one day seek revenge for their deposed grandfather, Amulius, their scheming uncle, took a drastic step. He placed the newborns in a basket and set them adrift on the Tiber River, a perilous fate reminiscent of the biblical story of Moses. Although intended to perish, the twins miraculously survived, washing ashore on Tiber Island. There they were nurtured by an unlikely caretaker, a fierce she-wolf named Lupa, who suckled them as if they were her own. Later, a shepherd discovered the boys. As Romulus and Remus grew, they decided it was time to establish their own city. Heading towards what would become Rome, they faced a disagreement about where to build it. Romulus favored Palatine Hill, while Remus preferred Aventine Hill. In ancient societies, the principle of primogeniture, favoring the firstborn, typically governed inheritance and leadership. However, the twins faced a dilemma as they were born simultaneously, making it unclear who should prevail in the dispute. To resolve the standoff, Romulus and Remus each positioned themselves on their chosen hills and awaited a sign from the gods, an augury, to determine who had been born first. Around 754 BC, a significant event unfolded. Remus observed a flock of 6 birds, prompting him to rush to inform Romulus, leaping over the walls of Palatine Hill. However, simultaneously Romulus saw a flock of 12 vultures soaring over his head. This led to a heated dispute that escalated into a physical confrontation. In the end, Romulus emerged victorious, slaying Remus in the process. In honor of this triumph, the city was named Roma, not Rema. Despite the tragic fratricide, Romans acclaimed and revered Romulus. Historians attempted to justify the killing, with some arguing that Remus had trespassed on Romulus's territory by leaping over the walls, portraying him as an impediment to the founding of Rome. Others framed it as a blood sacrifice to the gods. Rape of the Sabines. King Romulus aimed to create an ideal society on Palatine Hill, offering asylum to all in a bid to attract more citizens. He formed an army and appointed 100 senators to govern, but a significant problem emerged: a shortage of women in the new city of Roma. Understanding the importance of women for the growth and prosperity of the community, Romulus took a controversial approach. Following the practices of his time, he decided to take what he needed. Romulus inquired with neighboring tribes about the most beautiful and fertile women, and the Sabine Hills were identified. Romulus devised a plan. He threw a lavish party and invited neighboring tribes, including the Sabines. When the Sabines were sufficiently inebriated, the Romans drew their swords, leading to the killing of the Sabine men. Subsequently, they kidnapped the Sabine women and took them as wives. This historical event is known as the Rape of the Sabine Women, a scene that has been frequently depicted in art throughout history. The 7 Kings of Rome. Romulus served as the inaugural king of Rome, followed by 6 others, each contributing key aspects that would define ancient Rome, such as religious practices, military organization, the Circus Maximus, and public fora. The 7th and final king, Lucius Tarquinius Superbus, is remembered as a tyrant who ruled with cruelty and fear from 535 to 509 BC. His son, Sextus Tarquinius, further stained the family's name by raping Lucretia, an exceptionally virtuous woman in Rome. Lucretia, in response, voiced her protest, extracted an oath of vengeance, and then tragically took her own life by stabbing herself. The public outrage following this incident led to the overthrow of Tarquinius in 509 BC, and he was driven out of Rome. This marked the end of the Roman monarchy, signaling the beginning of the next phase in the history of Rome, the Roman Republic. For around 500 years, Rome functioned as a republic, starting in 509 BC and transitioning out by 27 BC. This republic, though often seen as a form of democracy, was more of an oligarchy. The power of the ousted monarchy was transferred to 2 annually elected magistrates called consuls, who also served as military commanders. These consuls, chosen by the people, were mostly drawn from the Senate, which was predominantly controlled by the patricians or aristocrats. Initially, political discourse was dominated by the patricians. However, in 367 BC, the plebeians or middle class gained more influence and became eligible for consulship. The Roman Republic expanded through military conquests, leading to a cultural flourishing as Romans adopted aspects of Greek art, philosophy, and religion. The late Republic faced internal turmoil, becoming a turning point in Rome's transformation from a republic to an empire. Political factions known as the Optimates and the Populares emerged, with the Optimates upholding an oligarchic rule favoring conservative patricians, while the Populares sought to represent the interests of the people. 2 notable leaders of this period were Gaius Marius, a Populare, and Lucius Cornelius Sulla, an Optimate. Marius, a renowned general and statesman, initiated military reforms, making the Roman army exceptionally effective. Sulla, elected consul in 88 BC, faced political machinations by Marius, leading to a coup d'état where Sulla marched on Rome, seized power, and exiled Marius. A bloody civil war ensued, with Sulla emerging victorious and being declared dictator by the Senate. Sulla's reforms concentrated more power in the hands of the elite, earning him a reputation as a ruthless dictator. His actions set a precedent for future challenges to the Roman constitution, as Rome oscillated between triumvirates and dictatorships, ultimately paving the way for Caesar's ascent to power. Rise of Julius Caesar, the dawn of empire. Julius Caesar played a pivotal role in the transition of Rome from a republic to an empire, a captivating story within the annals of ancient Rome. Born in 100 BC into a political family, Caesar faced adversity early on, marked as an enemy by Sulla, who spared his life. Rising through the political ranks, Caesar's fame and popularity grew when he was appointed to the role of aedile in 63 BC, responsible for public spectacles and games. In 60 BC, Caesar formed a political alliance known as the First Triumvirate with Marcus Licinius Crassus and Pompey the Great. While Crassus was the wealthiest man in Rome, and Pompey a military leader, Caesar, known for his ambition, sought to distinguish himself through military conquest. He married his daughter to Pompey, securing legions in return. Caesar's military campaigns were highly successful, defeating Vercingetorix in Gaul and expanding the Roman Republic into Europe and Britain. His victories and autobiographies made him a legendary figure, unsettling the power brokers in Rome. When Crassus died, the Senate declared Caesar an outlaw, accusing him of unauthorized military victories. Refusing to disband his army, Caesar marched on Rome in 49 BC, crossing the Rubicon River and initiating a civil war. Appointed dictator for life by the Senate, Caesar swiftly pursued Pompey, who had fled to Egypt amid a civil war. Caesar became entangled in the Egyptian conflict between Ptolemy and Cleopatra. Ptolemy, seeking Caesar's favor, captured and executed Pompey. Disgusted by this act, Caesar initially sided with Ptolemy but switched allegiance when Cleopatra presented herself in a carpet, gaining Caesar's support. Winning the war on Cleopatra's behalf, Caesar established her as Queen of Egypt. Caesar and Cleopatra had a son named Caesarion, but upon returning to Rome in 46 BC, Caesar's attempt to introduce his mixed-blood heir faced public disapproval. To avoid controversy, Caesar distanced himself from Cleopatra and Caesarion, placing them in a villa outside Rome. To consolidate his rule, Julius Caesar embarked on a campaign to win over the Roman people. He began by forgiving the debts of Roman citizens and organized public spectacles. Engaging in psychological games with Mark Antony, they played with the notion of a crown, with Caesar repeatedly rejecting the idea of becoming king. This play continued until the crowd itself began chanting "King Caesar." Through these tactics, Caesar effectively acclimated the public to the concept of monarchy. As dictator, he implemented social and political reforms, initiating public building projects. However, his rising power sparked envy among his rivals, particularly in the Senate. Caesar's dominance upset the balance of power in favor of the executive, posing a threat to any form of democracy. Senators, fearing that Caesar might proclaim himself king, plotted one of the most famous political assassinations in history, carried out in the name of liberty. On March 15, 44 BC, Caesar was summoned to a Senate meeting at the theater of Pompey. A month earlier, a soothsayer had warned him to beware the Ides of March. Ignoring the caution and considering himself invulnerable, Caesar attended the meeting without weapons or bodyguards. In a dramatic turn of events, Julius Caesar met his demise when around 60 conspirators, including some of his friends like Brutus and Cassius, stabbed him 23 times. The scene mirrored the legendary murder of Remus, aligning Caesar with the fate of Remus from centuries before. Caesar's reputed last moments occurred at the feet of a statue of his former ally turned rival Pompey, marking a symbolic revenge from beyond the grave. Among the conspirators, Decimus Junius Brutus Albinus was the actual mastermind behind the assassination, driven by resentment for Caesar's pardons. Some historians suggest that Brutus, one of Caesar's friends, was his illegitimate son due to a long-term affair with his mother, Servilia. Contrary to Shakespeare's portrayal, there's no historical evidence that Caesar uttered the famous words "Et tu, Brutus" in his dying moments. Decimus Junius Brutus Albinus played a more significant role in the betrayal. The aftermath of Caesar's assassination created a collective shock in Rome. Citizens grappled with conflicting emotions, whether to celebrate the downfall of a perceived tyrant or mourn the loss of a great leader. Mark Antony, making a strategic move, brought Caesar's body into the Roman Forum and delivered a compelling funeral speech. This speech, famously captured by Shakespeare as "Friends, Romans, and countrymen, lend me your ears," included the reading of what Antony claimed was Caesar's last will, leaving everything to the people of Rome. The political chess game following Caesar's death had begun. Mark Antony's actions, particularly his stirring funeral speech, defied Caesar and stirred the emotions of the Romans. A few days after the speech, Caesar's body was cremated on the very spot where Antony had delivered his address, turning it into a revered cult site. Antony, expecting Romans to rally behind him as Caesar's right-hand man, hoped to become the next leader. However, Caesar's actual will, which named his 19-year-old nephew Octavian as the heir, revealed a different path for succession. This unexpected turn set the stage for a complex power struggle in the aftermath of Caesar's assassination. The second triumvirate and victory of Octavian. Octavian's ascent to power after Caesar's death was marked by political maneuvering and alliances. Despite initial resistance from Mark Antony, Octavian secured a position as a senator and later consul. In 43 BC, Octavian joined a second triumvirate with Antony and Marcus Lepidus, but internal conflicts and ambitions quickly led to their downfall. Octavian, being politically astute, officially deified Julius Caesar in 42 BC, claiming the status of the son of a god. The second triumvirate divided governance, with Octavian in Italy, Antony in Egypt, and Lepidus in Africa. However, internal strife soon erupted, leading to the elimination of Lepidus from public life. Octavian then found himself in a power struggle with Antony for control of the empire. Octavian ruled the Western Empire, while Antony controlled the East and was romantically involved with Cleopatra. The relationship produced twins, and Antony recognized Cleopatra's son, Caesarion, as the king of kings and the legitimate heir of Caesar. Seeing Antony and Cleopatra as a threat, Octavian initiated another civil war in 31 BC. He strategically declared war on Cleopatra rather than Antony, turning Rome against the couple. Octavian and his strategist Marcus Agrippa outmaneuvered Antony and Cleopatra in the Battle of Actium, a decisive naval encounter. As Antony and Cleopatra found themselves trapped, they chose to commit suicide rather than face capture. Caesarion was also executed, putting an end to the idea of a Roman-Egyptian pharaoh. Octavian seized Cleopatra's wealth to settle his army and solidify his authority. This series of events marked Octavian's triumph and set the stage for his eventual transformation into Augustus, the first Roman emperor. Augustus becomes the first emperor. Octavian adopted the name Augustus, signifying first or revered one, and in 27 BC he was declared the first emperor of Rome. Augustus, ruling until 14 AD, is widely regarded as one of Rome's greatest emperors. He was a shrewd politician who, through a series of bloody battles, established a lasting peace known as the Pax Romana. Augustus skillfully revived republican traditions, seeking to placate the senators and project an image distancing himself from perceived despotism. He employed the power of images to portray himself as a peacemaker, flooding Rome with coins, monuments, and statues featuring his likeness, as well as depictions of Aeneas, Romulus, and Remus. A brilliant administrator, Augustus revamped the empire's bureaucracy, fostering a period of flourishing art and literature. Collaborating with Agrippa, he invested heavily in enhancing Rome's architecture, earning the accolade from historian Suetonius that Augustus transformed the city from a city of bricks to a city of marble. However, Augustus's ascent to power was marked by opportunism and ruthlessness. Despite passing stringent adultery laws, he himself engaged in numerous extramarital affairs, sometimes for political reasons. He disowned and exiled his daughter Julia. Augustus died at the age of 76 in 14 AD, likely of natural causes. Speculations about his death, including accusations of murder by his wife Livia, have been largely dismissed as gossip without concrete evidence. As Augustus exited the stage, his final words were reportedly, "Have I played the part well, then applaud as I exit." Roman Empire. Augustus's descendants formed the Julio-Claudian emperors, who ruled for nearly 100 years until the infamous Emperor Nero. Tiberius, Augustus's adopted son, succeeded him, but proved to be a lackluster and disinterested ruler, leading a reclusive life in Capri. Caligula, known for his madness, was the next emperor but faced a violent end due to his profligacy and erratic behavior. After Caligula's death, Claudius, his paternal uncle, became emperor, proving to be an able administrator and expanding the empire into England. Nero, the last of the Julio-Claudian emperors, was infamous for his debauchery and alleged crimes, including killing family members. Nero committed suicide at age 30 in 68 AD. Following Nero, the Flavian emperors, Vespasian, Titus, and Domitian, restored peace and built the Colosseum. The Roman Empire thrived under emperors Trajan and Hadrian, known for ambitious public building programs. The wise Stoic philosopher Marcus Aurelius marked the end of the 5 good emperors. His sentimental choice of his son Commodus as heir proved disastrous, as Commodus, a paranoid megalomaniac, was quickly murdered. Subsequent emperors faced decadence and decay, with Caracalla's brutality and Elagabalus's scandalous reign. By the 3rd century AD, instability prevailed, and military influence determined who held power. Constantine accelerated the decline by splitting the empire and introducing Christianity, shifting the focus from traditional Roman values to monotheism. The fall of Rome in 476 AD was marked by the Germanic leader Odoacer overthrowing Romulus, the last Roman emperor in the West. The eastern half continued as the Byzantine Empire, while the western part entered the Dark Ages before experiencing a cultural revival during the Renaissance. And there you have it, a quick overview of the rise and fall of ancient Rome on a quick note. Until next time.